And the new edition of Fanbase Music Magazine is out right now. Be sure to go to fanbasemag.co.za. All right, live on the phone, we have Mr. Stacey Donahue of the Mighty Swine. How you doing today, Stacey?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing rather well. You've got a big tour coming up with the German metal goddess DORO, and I'm excited about it. I'm not even in your band, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, we are extremely excited about it. I've been listening to DORO since I was in high school, since she was in Warlock. So, yeah, this is a big thrill to be able to go out and play with a legend like DORO.
I bet it is. I mean, you don't always get a tour like this, but you guys lucked out. I mean, the tour kicks off October 10th in Racine, Wisconsin, and
Yep.
I think it ends October 20th in New York City.
Yes. Yep.
So it's a short North American tour for DORO, but hey, at least you guys are on the bill, and you're going to go out there and rock and do your stuff for people and show what you can do to people that probably don't know who the Swine is yet, but they will after you guys get done playing.
Yeah, it should be very interesting show. Our music goes along really well with what he does, which is basically straight up, straight ahead metal. So what we do is basically along those lines as well. So, yeah, it should be a really good package. I think people will really get into it. And, yeah, absolutely. It helps get our name out there, and, that's always a good thing.
Absolutely. Now, the new Mighty Swine CD, Last Man Standing, is out now. I'll admit, it's a pretty damn good CD, too. And I'm a pretty tough critic. Now, you just joined the band on this last CD, although the band has been out for a while. Let's have a little bit of background on Stacey Donahue. I mean, what have you been doing before the Mighty Swine?
I played in several original bands. A couple of the songs that are on CD actually were used in other forms in various other bands. And the thing that I was doing right before I joined Mighty Swine, I was in an Ozzy Randy Rhoads tribute band, where obviously I played Randy Rhoads.
Nice.
So that played all over the state of Ohio and into Indiana, and was very well received. And that was a joy in itself to be able to go out and play one of your musical heroes. So yeah, I absolutely enjoyed doing that. But I had talked to Mike online. Actually, I could have probably been on the first CD, but for whatever reason, things just didn't click at that time. So we revisited that, and he asked me to play on a couple of songs. So I absolutely readily agreed, being a huge Chastain fan. Of course, Mike was in Chastain, CJSS. So, he sent me the tracks, and I sent him the first song back, and he really enjoyed what I was doing. And it was the harmony lead that I came up with for Two Graves, which you said you just played, which he said got me the job. So
nice.
The first song was Thick as Thieves, and the second song he sent me ended up being Two Graves.
Nice.
So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Very exciting.
So you played in a Randy Rhoads or Ozzy tribute band doing Randy Rhoads. I'll tell you, you can't be a slouch and do Randy Rhoads stuff. That guy was definitely an animal on guitar.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, Randy is definitely one of my biggest influences. I can't say enough about the guy. Unfortunately, he only got to do 2 albums, but he did more on 2 albums than most guitar players do in a lifetime, in my opinion. So, I absolutely love Randy. I still listen to both of those albums to this day, and I've been told that you can definitely hear his influence in my playing, which I do not take that as a fault by any means.
No, that's definitely a compliment, and I think it comes true in Last Man Standing, the song itself. I think the solo on that is definitely very tasty.
Well, thank you.
And guitarists out there, young guitarists, I mean, you should listen to the Mighty Swine and listen to some of Stacey's stuff on there, because I tell you, that's pretty good stuff. Now, who are some of your other influences?
Early on, I mean, the reason I picked up guitar in the first place was obviously Ace Frehley. When I saw the Destroyer album cover, I was just absolutely blown away. I'd never seen anything like that before. I was 10 years old, and, then shortly after that, heard about Eddie Van Halen, and the finger tapping, and I was just, again, her eruption, I was just absolutely blown away. And then in rapid succession, Randy Rhoads and Yngwie Malmsteen, you know, the long arpeggiated runs, and it just kept getting more technical and more technical and more technical. And then, like I said, I was a huge David Chastain fan, so, you know, I loved the guitar players playing 5,000 miles an hour, if you will. So I kind of used that. I don't like to do it, you know, from start to finish in a solo, but, you know, use it tastefully, like everything else.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's some bands out there who overdo it. Sometimes a little goes a long way. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So in previous bands, you guys do any recording or anything that we might have heard of?
I was this is actually my first release, as, you know, I've recorded several things, but they just never got out of the gate, so to speak. I was in a band for a short time in Cleveland, and we had actually signed a 5-album record deal with a company in Germany, and before that got off the ground, unfortunately, the band had some inner turmoil, which happens quite frequently, and that was pretty much the end of that. So, yeah, I've done a lot, just unfortunately not to the level that, you know, I've finally been able to achieve with the Mighty Swine, and of course, you know, Mike Skimmerhorn. So,
right. Now, how is Mike to work with? Is he a tough critic? Is he a tough critic? Is he hard to work for, or is he pretty easygoing?
He's not at all hard to work for, but he definitely knows what he wants to hear. I mean, obviously, you know, years of playing with David. David's definitely one of the best guitar players in the world, hands down. You know, so that was something that was always on the forefront of my thinking when I went into the studio. I'm like, oh man, you know, you can't be sloppy. You can't let a note slide here or there, because Mike has a good ear, and, you know, he definitely helped me pick things apart, and we found what worked and what didn't work, you know, real quick. So, and luckily, most of everything that I played, he really enjoyed on the first go through. There wasn't a whole lot of rewrites. You mentioned the lead in Last Man Standing. You know, I was kind of leery about going into the studio and finger tapping that whole lead, but, you know, I ran the idea across to Mike, and he was like, hey, if it works and it sounds good, go for it. So that was almost the first take lead in Last Man Standing.
Nice. I mean, it not only sounds good, I mean, in the video, it looks pretty cool, too.
And that's exactly how it's played.
Very, very cool. Now, the writing of the album, is that something you guys worked on together, or did Mike have most of the songs written, or how'd that work out?
I would say Mike plays enough guitar that he can get an idea across. So I would 75% of that is written, passing emails back and forth, believe it or not. I have a recording studio in my house. He has a means of recording in his house. So he would put down an idea with a basic drum track, a very good bass line, obviously, because Mike is a killer bass player, and a very, very slim guitar line. And he would send me an email saying, you know, here's my idea. Feel free to embellish, change, add, whatever you see fit with the guitar. So he would send me the tracks, and then I would put my ideas to him. And that's, like I said, how probably 75 to 80% of the album was written. And then I showed him 3 songs of mine that we had in a previous incarnation, and he really enjoyed those. He changed them around, because when I write a song, I don't view it from the standpoint of the lyricist or the drummer or the bass player. I just write whatever comes out. So Mike rearranged my songs to fit a lyrical idea that he had, and then there were 2 songs that we collaborated on. One was in the same room, and then one he just hit me, which was really something I've never done before, but I think the end result came out really well. For the song Rite of Passage, he me just his bass line in the drum track and said, I want you to put something to this. And I was just absolutely blown away. I put it on, and it was drums and bass, and I'm like, what do you want me to do with this? So I sat down, and it finally started coming to me, and what you hear on Rite of Passage is definitely Mike came up solely with the bass line, and I came up solely with the guitar line, and I think the result pretty much speaks for itself.
Well, it's definitely good stuff. Now, Jeff Tong is the other guitarist in the band. How is he to work with? Are you guys sharing lead duties, or is he primarily a rhythm guitarist?
At this point, he came in. I've been friends with Jeff for quite some time. I love the guy to death. He's an awesome guy. He came in kind of late in the process. The original version of Mighty Swine was just a three-piece. And Mike had told me pretty much straight from the get-go that he wanted this version of Mighty Swine to be two guitars. So when I was writing my parts, I approached some of the pieces as, what would another guitar player be doing? So when the time finally come to start doing rehearsals, because through the recording process, Jeff wasn't really available at that point. He had other things, another project that he was in, and I was willing to wait. So, Mike pretty much left it up to me to pick the other guitar player, obviously, so it would be somebody that I could work with and, somebody that I get along with. So Jeff was my first and obvious choice. So, right now at this point in time, he does several leads in a live situation, but as far as, being on the album, like I said, unfortunately the schedules and time just didn't allow for it, but, now he's a part of the band and he'll be on tour, and he's a phenomenal guitar player, and he definitely makes the guitar sound that much bigger.
Now, the one thing I noticed about you guys, too, some bands, when they have two guitarists in the band, the second guitarist is kind of basically just following the bass line, just more of a rhythm player. But I can hear the two distinctive guitar parts in a lot of your songs, and I definitely like that.
Yep, so that comes from the Judas Priest, Queensryche influence. I have a lot of influences, obviously, that aren't just the lead playing, and Queensryche, early Queensryche especially. Chris DeGarmo and Michael Whitton were phenomenal rhythm guitar players and songwriters, and they always had the counterpoint rhythms that accented each other and complemented each other. So, that's one thing that, it just wasn't about, hey, let's go in here and put down 3 chords so I can solo. That's never, the solo was always the last thing to be dealt with or thought of. I didn't want to write pieces of music just to solo over, because that to me isn't the song. I'm very much into the songwriting process and how the song feels and what it says before the lead ever goes onto it.
Now, rounding out the band, you've got Rory on drums. With any good band, nothing against you guitarists, but drums and vocals is definitely what sticks out for me and a lot of bands. And you've got a damn good drummer with Rory.
Yeah, well, I'm probably about to give a scoop away here. Rory was an absolutely incredible drummer, great guy, but he is obviously from Nashville, so he was contacted to do the album and was never really going to be our live drummer. So we did do a couple shows with Rory. Obviously, he is in the video. He has a lot of time constraints with his studio work that he does in Nashville. He plays in another band in Nashville. So it was always our intent. Me and Jeff are basically from Columbus. Obviously, Cincinnati, which is not that far away from Columbus, but our intent was always to get a Cincinnati or Columbus-based drummer. Well, that has happened. We've been working with a guy from Columbus, Ohio, phenomenal drummer, plays Rory stuff to the T. He
Nice.
definitely will not disappoint when we're on tour, that's for sure. And the guy's name is Mr. Rick Martellino.
Nice. So people should look forward to seeing Rick out there. One thing I like about Rory, some drummers, they kind of overdo it, and they're trying to be Neil Peart and Dave Lombardo all in one. With some heavy bands, but Rory's drum parts. I mean, me being a drummer myself, I appreciate a good drummer. The double bass work, it's nice, it's fast, fancy. He's got like a fancy style. It just complements what you guys are doing. And if you're a new drummer, can do the same thing. You definitely got a nice package out there when you're out doing the tour.
Yeah, I can't say enough about Rory's drums. I mean, he definitely picked those songs up, and again, Mike knows what he wants to hear. Gave Rory full freedom, pretty much, to do what he felt was necessary, and we would send him the tracks, and he would send the tracks back. And I think maybe out of the 9 songs, the one being "Pool of Emptiness" that was already a previous demo, but out of the 10 songs that we actually recorded, I think there was one instance of we asked him to change something. So that's not too bad.
No, not at all. The new album is Last Man Standing. It's on Broad Horizon Records. People should pick that up. Of course, you can go to Broad Horizon Records website. You can go to the MightySwine.com website. What's some of the other places you can pick up the CD?
You can get it off Amazon. It is on iTunes, Xbox, Spotify. I mean, it's pretty much out there in every market to either download or buy an actual physical CD. Definitely pick it up. If you're into old school Priest, Iron Maiden, Queensryche, we've had Sabotage comparisons, we've had Megadeth comparisons, which I don't take any of those as a bad thing. Those are all bands that I listened to growing up. So, if you're into that kind of stuff, definitely check it out.
And those are all bands that are played on this radio show too, so you definitely got a fan here. Now you mentioned Judas Priest, and you guys do a cover of Hellbent for Leather, which I played earlier in the program. Whose idea was it to do that, and what's your thoughts on that?
Well, on the first CD, they did Sunshine of Your Love. Mike come in one day, and he said, "Man," he goes, "I was driving down the highway," and he said, "Hellbent for Leather, come on." He said, "I just cranked it up as loud as it would go. My foot went to the floor." And he said, right then, he said, I knew that we could take that song and update it and make it, obviously cool, or more cool than it already is, being a Judas Priest song. And I was absolutely cool with it. I was in the next Judas Priest tribute band at one time also. So, yeah, that was absolutely, it was fun to work with. And I actually did a little poll on Facebook, which I thought would be funny, about doing an actual note for note, to the original, modify it somewhat, or go off the deep end and totally change it. And pretty much the response I got was what I ended up doing, which was keeping it true to the original, but modifying it somewhat. I mean, obviously the finger tapping solo at the beginning that Glenn does, you can't change that. Now the second half of the lead, I definitely changed up and they played a little bit faster than Glenn did, but I mean, basically the notes and the structure are there. And then during the chorus part, instead of just chugging on the A for the Hellbent for Leather part, I opted to gallop it. So it adds a little bit more, it's the same, but it's different.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I like what you guys did because it's true to the original, but you definitely put your own stamp of approval on it, and you definitely did a good job.
Right. Well, and Priest being as well known as they are, and the hordes of fans that they have, including myself, a huge Judas Priest fan, I mean, we would get murdered if, we changed it too much from the original, but you really don't want to do an exact note-for-note copy either, or there isn't really no sense in making it. If you can't do anything different or exciting with it, then it's probably just best to leave it alone. That's maybe why nobody's ever remade Stairway to Heaven that I've ever heard.
Very, very good point. Very good point.
So, Yeah, it was a lot of fun to record, and we pretty much did that live in the studio. It was pretty much a one-take thing. Obviously me and Mike have played that song for years and years and years in other bands and other projects. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun to do that. And of course, like I said, we're both huge Judas Priest fans, so it definitely wasn't a bad thing.
Now, the Last Man Standing CD, that was come out, I believe, around the 1st of August. Is there any thoughts on another album?
Actually, that came out, I think, May 20th, but didn't really get a whole lot of momentum until, here just not too long ago. But, yeah, I mean, with it, being relatively recent, me and Mike have already talked about doing some more writing, obviously, after this DORO thing, because after the 11 cities, she goes back home to Germany. Then she's coming back over here in the spring and going to do the southern half of the United States and out to the West Coast. We are hoping that we'll get picked up for that. I mean, nothing's been said yet, so that's kind of a wait and see thing. But yeah, I mean, I would absolutely hope to at least do a follow up to Last Man Standing and see, now that me and Mike are definitely a little bit more in tune with each other as far as writing and what the Mighty Swine is, because obviously this album, if there's anybody out there that's heard the first one, this is a huge departure from that first album. Not saying anything bad against the first album, but this one's much more aggressive, much more heavy. Like I said, they did Sunshine of Your Love on the first album for a cover, and then we go to Hellbent for Leather. So, I mean, that should say something right there.
Yeah, I will admit, Stacey, that the first album was good. Laying Down the Law, that definitely was the song that I think broke the band, gave you guys a more recognition. But the new stuff, I would say it's not supercharged, but there's definitely, you brought something to the band that I think the band needed. I'll say it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. When Mike first contacted me, I had heard a few cuts off of the first album, and it had a newer edge feel to it, which I appreciate that. But I basically told Mike in no uncertain terms, I said, I'm going to tell you straight up, man, I'm an 80s metal guitar player. I said, I do finger tapping, I do arpeggios, I can play lightning fast if it calls for it. I can play bluesy, but my mainstay is I'm an 80s metal guitar player. I loved King Diamond. I loved Armored Saint, Sabotage. Again, all of those early influences. And I said, if that's the sound that you're looking for, I said, I'm definitely your guy. But I said, if you want somebody to play three chords and I do what I do, and I've spent, 30-some years playing guitar, and I'm not going to change what I do. And he was absolutely open to the fact that, I think he wanted to get back more to a straight-up metal album. So it definitely worked in both of our favors. He's at places in his solo career, if you want to call it that he's never been, and I'm in places where I've never been. So I think we both definitely got something out of this that, is a definite plus and an advantage.
Well, definitely the collaboration does work, and even though it's basically a metal album, it's very radio-friendly. Any rock radio station that's not playing the Mighty Swine definitely should be, and hopefully more stations will pick it up and get them on their airwaves to let the people hear what you guys are doing.
Well, buddy, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I told Mike when we first started this thing, I said, basically all I wanted my whole entire career was just to see my name and my picture and hear my playing on an actual CD. And I said everything that we get from that is just a bonus. So, I mean, we're way into bonus time now. We're going on tour with DORO, and I'm doing radio interviews. So yeah, it's absolutely been fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, it definitely has worked, and there's been clashes, there's been, heated discussions, let's put it that way, but, I think it's all a growing thing, and anything right now to make this band as top-notch as it can be. I mean, again, we're going out on tour with Doro Pesh. You know, you better bring your A game, or you'll be packing your bags, I'm assuming, and, you know, returning to where you came from. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a real eye opener, and I couldn't ask for anything more.
Very good, very good. Is there anything you want to add in closing there, Stacey?
Again, we definitely appreciate your support. You know, tell the friends, check out the new album, and, you know, we definitely appreciate everything that they've given us, and we will see them all in a couple of days in Wisconsin.
Very good. The tour kicks off October 10th in Racine, Wisconsin, and I think it finishes up in New York City on October 20th at the Gramercy Theater. And if you get a chance to go out and see the Mighty Swine, you really should do it, especially with Doro. I mean, she comes to North America every once in a blue moon. This is your chance to go check her out. And I got to admit, you know, for an old rocker who's been out there for a long time, she looks pretty damn good on that poster.
Yeah, she absolutely does. She hasn't lost anything, that's for sure. You know, her voice is top notch. Her songwriting is still some of the best straight ahead head-banging metal out there, and she is unapologetic about it, which I love. You know, she is what she is. When you buy that album, you know what you're getting. It's awesome.
Going to be a great tour. Mighty Swine opening up for Doro October 10th, Racine, Wisconsin. Get out there, go see the guys. MightySwine.com, Facebook.com/The Mighty Swine. Going to play the title track right now from the new album. Here's The Mighty Swine, Last Man Standing.
guillotines. The black horse is warm.